Have you ever wondered how you would keep going if you lost the person with whom you shared your entire life? This type of loss is profound and universal, and anyone who's ever experienced a long, meaningful relationship likely fears facing it at some point. When it happens, losing a spouse can be overwhelmingly devastating, not only because of the absence of that person in your daily life, but because it leaves a deep void that affects every aspect of your existence, your routines, your identity, your motivation, and even your very sense of purpose. It's natural after a loss like this to feel adrift, to feel empty, and to question everything. You may wonder constantly, how do I go on from here? And how do I rebuild my life when everything I once knew and held dear has changed so drastically? Today, we're going to explore how it's possible to not only survive such a significant loss, but to actually find ways to thrive in a new chapter of life. And when I say thrive, I don't just mean getting by or moving on. I mean rediscovering peace, joy, and a sense of purpose that can sustain you even after such an essential part of you is gone. Thriving in this new season doesn't mean forgetting or denying the love that existed. Rather, it's about building a life that honors that love while allowing yourself to flourish in the present. It's a shift, an opening to new ways of finding meaning and fulfillment. In this video, we'll dive into the real stories of 3 individuals who each experienced the loss of a beloved partner, and who, despite facing some of life's toughest emotional and practical challenges, emerged with new perspectives and renewed energy for living. These aren't fairy tales or quick fixes. They're authentic examples of people just like you and me, people who have had to navigate the deep waters of grief, loneliness, and the process of rebuilding a life they didn't plan for. And each of these stories holds powerful lessons, because while pain and emptiness are natural parts of grief, so too is human resilience and the strength to move forward, stronger and more aware of what truly matters. As we journey through these stories, I want to invite you to open your mind and heart to the idea that this stage of life, although full of challenges, can also be one of the richest and most meaningful. Beyond the stories themselves, we'll dive into practical, accessible steps you can take in your own daily life to find balance, establish new routines, and restore a sense of peace. Know that although the future might feel uncertain right now, a fulfilling new chapter is entirely possible. Let's discover it together. Doña Elena, like so many who have faced the loss of a lifelong partner, found herself grappling with a loneliness that seemed insurmountable. When her husband passed away after more than 50 years of marriage, Elena's life changed completely. Everything that once gave her a sense of stability and purpose now felt out of reach, as if it had lost its meaning overnight. The emptiness in her home was so immense that to her, the very walls seemed to echo the absence of her husband. At first, she found herself trapped in a routine of sorrow. Days and nights blurred together in a seemingly endless stretch of lonely moments, where every item in her home reminded her of what was missing. The photos in the living room, the scent of her husband's clothes, and even simple daily tasks like cooking for one, something she had never had to do. Eleanor was completely overwhelmed by the stillness and silence of a life lived alone. But over time, Elena realized that the grief, while natural and necessary, was not something she wanted to carry forever. She knew that, somehow, she needed to find a way forward, a way to reconnect with herself and with life, in a way that was meaningful and fulfilling. This realization didn't come easily or quickly. It came after days, weeks, even months of soul-searching and small, incremental changes that helped her begin to feel more at peace in her new reality. Eleanor's journey taught her a great deal about living fully, even in the face of deep loss. And through her story, we can uncover some truly valuable lessons about resilience, self-care, and the power of embracing life, one day at a time. One of the first steps Elena took was creating a new morning routine, something simple yet grounding that gave her a reason to get up each day. She began with small rituals, like making a cup of tea and sitting by her window to watch the world wake up around her. This might seem minor, but it was a crucial part of her healing. Every morning, she took a few moments to set an intention for the day. At first, these intentions were basic, like, "I will go for a walk today," or "I will call my friend and talk for a bit." Over time, these small goals built a rhythm, a sense of structure that she could rely on, even if everything else felt uncertain. For someone facing a huge life change, a consistent routine is a powerful tool. It offers a feeling of control, a steadying anchor that can help manage the overwhelming feelings of grief. Gradually, Elena began to take walks around her neighborhood, which introduced a new layer of connection to her day. At first, the walks were brief and quiet. She simply went out to breathe fresh air and feel the ground beneath her feet. But eventually, she began to notice the world around her, the neighbors going about their day, the sounds of birds, the changing colors of the trees. She began exchanging small greetings with people she saw regularly, like the man who walked his dog every morning, or the woman who tended the garden around the corner. These small interactions started to remind her that she was part of a larger world, a community, and that, despite her loss, life was still happening all around her. This realization brought her a renewed sense of presence. Grief often keeps us rooted in the past, revisiting memories and questioning what might have been. But by connecting with her surroundings, Elena found a way to be present in the now. Elena's journey also taught her the value of self-care, a term that's often mentioned but is rarely fully understood, especially in times of profound sadness. At first, Elena struggled with the concept of taking care of herself. She had spent so many years caring for her husband, raising her family, and being there for others, that focusing on her own well-being felt strange, even selfish. But as her friends gently reminded her, taking care of herself was essential, especially now. This didn't mean that she had to completely reinvent herself or set ambitious new goals. Instead, self-care for her meant little acts of kindness towards herself, cooking healthy meals, going to bed at a reasonable time, and even allowing herself moments of joy, like reading her favorite books or working in the garden. Another turning point for Elena came when she began reaching out to old friends and reconnecting with her social circle. In the early days of her grief, she had withdrawn, feeling that no one could truly understand her pain. But one day, she received an unexpected phone call from a friend who simply wanted to check on her. This small gesture opened a door for Elena. She realized that there were people who cared deeply for her and wanted to support her, even if they couldn't fully comprehend her experience. Little by little, she began to accept invitations to join friends for coffee or attend community events. She joined a book club, which gave her something to look forward to each month and provided her with the comfort of being around people who shared her interests. It's easy to feel isolated after a loss, to believe that no one else could possibly relate to your experience. But by opening herself up to others, Elena discovered a network of support that helped her regain her sense of belonging and connection. An essential lesson Elena learned along the way was the importance of gratitude, a powerful tool, especially when life feels difficult and overwhelming. Every evening before going to bed, she made a habit of writing down one thing she was grateful for that day. At first, These lists were simple, sometimes even repetitive. I'm grateful for the sunshine, or I'm grateful for the warm tea I had this morning. But as days went by, she began to notice more nuanced moments of joy and peace. I'm grateful for the conversation I had with my neighbor, or I'm grateful for the flowers blooming in the garden. This practice didn't eliminate her pain or erase her grief, but it did shift her focus towards the small but meaningful parts of her day, reminding her that there was still beauty in her life, even amidst the sadness. One of the most profound lessons from Eleanor's journey was the idea of acceptance. It's often said that acceptance is the final stage of grief, but this doesn't mean that the pain simply disappears or that we stop missing those we've lost. For Elena, acceptance meant understanding that her life had changed irrevocably and that she could honor her husband's memory while still allowing herself to find happiness. Acceptance, for her, was about giving herself permission to live fully, to embrace new experiences, and to find peace in the present. She realized that this new chapter of her life, although different from what she had imagined, was still a part of her story, and she wanted it to be one she could look back on with pride and fulfillment. Eleanor's story teaches us that grief is not a process with a clear beginning and end. It's a journey that ebbs and flows, with good days and hard days. However, by building small, meaningful routines, cultivating connections, practicing gratitude, and embracing the present, we can find a way to thrive even in the face of loss. Eleanor didn't become someone new or forget the life she had shared with her husband. Instead, she grew into someone stronger, more compassionate, and deeply connected to the beauty of everyday moments. Her story reminds us that healing is possible, that life after loss can be fulfilling, and that we are capable of more resilience than we often realize. Elena's journey shows us that while grief may be an inevitable part of life, so too is the capacity to find joy, purpose, and peace once more. Mrs. Teresa's story highlights a different path through grief, a journey toward reclaiming her independence, even when the loneliness felt most intense. After her husband's passing, Teresa was left with a vast emptiness she had never experienced before. Their life together had been one of stability and companionship. They had raised children, traveled, celebrated countless milestones, and shared a world that was uniquely theirs. Without him, every corner of her home seemed haunted by memories of their time together, each room a reminder of the loss she was struggling to bear. Like many others facing this profound transition, Teresa was unsure how she could manage life alone, especially as she faced the daily realities and demands of aging. At first, Teresa's natural response was to turn to her family for support. She decided to move in with her adult son, hoping that living with family would ease the loneliness. She imagined her days would be filled with the warmth and comfort of having loved ones around, of not having to eat meals alone, and of the small but cherished moments with her grandchildren. But as she settled into her new environment, Teresa soon discovered that the transition wasn't as seamless or comforting as she had expected. The reality of living with her son's family brought about challenges she hadn't anticipated, and she quickly found herself in a situation where her well-being and sense of self were more compromised than ever before. Living with family can sound ideal, and for many people it is a wonderful solution, providing daily companionship and support. But for Teresa, it became apparent that the dynamics within a multi-generational household brought unique challenges. Her son and his wife had their routines, rules, and rhythms. They were a young family with different priorities and pressures, balancing their own careers and the needs of young children. Teresa began to feel as if she were an outsider in their world. an unintended burden despite her family's love and best intentions. She found herself adjusting her habits to fit their routines, refraining from watching her favorite shows to avoid bothering anyone, and even altering her meal times to suit the family's schedule. These small sacrifices accumulated, leading Teresa to feel as though she had lost her autonomy and the right to live on her own terms. At the same time, living with family after decades of independence came with the added layer of generational differences that she hadn't considered. Teresa had her own ways of doing things, approaches to cooking, cleaning, and even spending her free time. She valued moments of quiet and was used to a certain pace of life, one that wasn't rushed or chaotic. However, the atmosphere in her son's household was often bustling with activity, and there was little time for calm reflection or even personal space. The children's noise, the constant flow of people, and the feeling of not being able to truly unwind all began to weigh heavily on her. Over time, Teresa started to feel as if she was losing herself, her identity slipping away in the demands and expectations of the household around her. Yet, she felt conflicted, torn between the desire to stay close to her family and the deep-seated need for her own space. She wrestled with guilt, wondering if wanting her own life apart from her family was selfish or ungrateful. This inner conflict is something many people face after a loss, the battle between wanting connection and needing independence. Teresa had to come to terms with the fact that while family could offer companionship and support, it could not replace her own autonomy, her right to live according to her own needs and preferences. She realized that regaining her independence was not a rejection of her family, but a necessary step in her healing process. Teresa needed to find a way to balance her relationships with the space she needed to rediscover herself and to live in a way that honored her past while embracing her new chapter. This realization was transformative. Teresa made the brave decision to move out of her son's home and find a small apartment nearby. This was not an easy choice. She worried that her family might interpret it as abandonment, and she feared that living alone again would only intensify her feelings of loss. But she also knew deep down that in order to heal and thrive, she needed to reclaim her independence, to create a home that was hers alone. Moving into her own place allowed her to set her own routines, to enjoy her quiet mornings with a cup of tea by the window, and to find solace in the rhythms of life that were once familiar and comforting to her. The first few weeks in her new apartment were challenging but empowering. Teresa slowly started to rebuild her daily life, cultivating a sense of stability and peace that had been absent since her husband's passing. She began cooking meals she loved, decorating her space with items that brought her joy, and filling her home with small comforts that reminded her of the life she had once shared with her husband, while also allowing room for her new beginnings. This space became a sanctuary, a place where she could grieve, reflect, and, most importantly, heal. By living independently, Teresa was able to set boundaries that allowed her to grow and to truly honor both her past and her future. Being on her own also opened doors to new experiences. Teresa made an effort to join local community activities, including a gardening club where she could meet people her age who shared similar interests. Gardening became a passion, a source of meditation, and a symbol of her resilience. As she tended to her plants, Teresa realized that she was nurturing her own growth as well. She also began attending art classes and, for the first time in years, felt inspired to try something completely new. These activities not only gave her a renewed sense of purpose, but also helped her build a social network outside of her family, reinforcing her sense of independence and belonging. Another important lesson Teresa learned through her journey was the value of establishing a routine that was uniquely her own. Having her own space meant that she could decide how to spend her days without the pressure to conform to others' schedules. She established a morning ritual that she came to cherish, starting each day with a simple exercise routine, followed by a cup of coffee and a few minutes spent journaling. This time alone in the mornings allowed her to center herself, to think about her goals for the day, and to reflect on her progress. Developing a routine that she controlled provided Teresa with the structure she needed to feel grounded, and it offered her a consistent source of comfort and strength. In her new life, Teresa discovered the profound importance of solitude and self-reflection. Living alone allowed her to process her grief in a way that was both private and healing. She could openly reminisce about her husband, cry when she needed to, and honor his memory in ways that felt authentic to her. This solitude gave her the freedom to truly come to terms with her loss, to understand it not as something to move on from, but as a part of her life that would always be with her. In finding this peace within herself, Teresa was able to redefine her relationship with her late husband, keeping his memory alive while allowing herself to look forward with hope. Through her journey, Teresa also recognized the importance of setting boundaries with her family, a difficult but necessary step to maintain her independence. She made it clear that while she loved them deeply, she needed time and space to nurture her own well-being. By maintaining this balance, Teresa created a stronger, healthier relationship with her family, one built on mutual respect and understanding. She found that by establishing her own life, she could bring more joy, energy, and love into her interactions with them. Her time with her grandchildren became more meaningful as she was able to fully enjoy these moments without feeling overwhelmed or exhausted. Independence, she realized, did not mean isolation. It was about creating a life that allowed her to be her fullest self, both for herself and for her loved ones. Ultimately, Teresa's story teaches us that independence is not just a preference, but an essential aspect of well-being, especially in the face of loss. Her journey shows us that even in our later years, we have the right and the need to live authentically, to prioritize our personal peace, and to create an environment that supports our mental and emotional health. By bravely choosing to reclaim her independence, Teresa not only healed, but also transformed her life in a way that honored both her past and her present. Her experience reminds us that, although it may be difficult to take that first step, finding and embracing our own path is one of the most empowering choices we can make, allowing us to grow, to connect with others more fully, and to live with a renewed sense of purpose and peace. In reclaiming her independence, Teresa found the strength to carry forward with her husband's memory, but she also discovered that life still held opportunities for joy, growth, and connection. Her journey is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and a reminder that healing, though complex, is possible. Teresa's story inspires us to reflect on our own lives, to consider the ways in which independence can empower us to live more fully and to embrace each day as an opportunity to reconnect with ourselves and the world around us. Mrs. Carmen's story is one of courage and vulnerability, as she made the brave decision to open her heart again after losing her husband. Losing a spouse is often likened to losing a part of oneself, and for Carmen, this was certainly true. Her husband had been her confidant, her companion, and her partner in every sense. They had shared dreams, traveled the world, and faced countless challenges together. Their life was full, and their bond was unbreakable. But when he passed away, Carmen was left adrift, grappling with a future she had never planned for, feeling the immense weight of solitude. She spent years mourning her husband, honoring his memory in ways that helped her feel close to him. But as time passed, she began to feel a different kind of loneliness, a longing not just for his presence, but for companionship, conversation, and the closeness that comes from sharing daily life with someone else. As the years went by, Carmen found herself wondering if perhaps, after all this time, she might be open to sharing her life with someone new. This wasn't an easy thought to entertain. It felt almost disloyal to the love she and her husband had shared. She worried about how her family would react, how friends would perceive her, and, most importantly, whether she would even be able to find a connection that could feel meaningful and genuine at her age. Carmen's internal struggle is one many people face after loss. The conflict between honoring a past love and recognizing the human need for connection and companionship in the present. Opening herself up to the possibility of a new relationship felt daunting, but she reminded herself that love and companionship are not meant to be confined to any particular phase of life. She reminded herself that, despite her age, she was still vibrant, capable of joy, and deserving of affection. Eventually, Carmen met a man through a local senior social group, and their connection felt natural and comfortable. He was kind, attentive, and seemed to understand her past without judgment. At first, their relationship was simple. They enjoyed each other's company, shared meals, went on walks, and slowly built a companionship that was supportive and warm. Carmen felt a spark of happiness she hadn't felt in years, a sense of hope and excitement that reminded her of what it felt like to be cherished. Yet, as their relationship deepened, she began to face unexpected challenges that she hadn't anticipated. Issues that made her question if pursuing a new relationship in her later years was truly what she wanted. One of the first hurdles Carmen encountered was the complexity of blending lives at an older age. Unlike when she was younger, with fewer attachments and responsibilities, now she had a lifetime of experiences, habits, and preferences. She was set in her ways, as was he. They both had family members, routines, and established social circles. Carmen was used to certain rituals, like her early morning meditation, her favorite spot on the couch, and the way she liked her home to feel, a sanctuary filled with memories of her husband. When her new partner suggested that they move in together, she hesitated, realizing how much she valued her space and the familiar comforts of her own environment. This was something she hadn't fully considered. The idea of sharing her personal space with all its intimate connections to her past felt intrusive. She realized that while she craved companionship, she was also deeply connected to her independence, her routines, and the sanctuary she had built for herself. Another significant challenge was navigating family dynamics. Carmen's children were supportive of her desire for companionship, but when it became clear that her relationship was serious, their reactions became more complicated. They worried that she might be taken advantage of, or that a new relationship might disrupt the balance they had found as a family since their father's passing. Carmen understood their concerns, but she also felt frustrated. She was still the same woman who had raised them, capable of making her own decisions, and she resented the implication that she needed their approval to pursue her happiness. At the same time, she didn't want to alienate her family or create tension. This balancing act became emotionally taxing, forcing her to constantly reassure her children of her intentions while also trying to maintain the integrity of her new relationship. She realized that even though she was in her later years, she still had to navigate the complex landscape of family approval and personal choices. The financial aspect of the relationship was also unexpectedly complicated. Carmen had managed her finances responsibly throughout her life and was proud of the stability she had achieved. However, as her relationship deepened, conversations about shared expenses, wills and inheritances arose, leading to discussions that felt both uncomfortable and necessary. Money had never been a primary focus in her past relationship. She and her late husband had shared their lives and finances without question. But now, in a new relationship, Carmen found herself needing to set boundaries and clarify her financial independence. She didn't want to be in a position where money became a source of tension or dependency, especially after working so hard to secure her own financial future. This experience taught her a valuable lesson about the importance of financial autonomy and transparency, particularly in a new relationship later in life. She learned that protecting her financial interests was not about being selfish, but about respecting the life she had built and the legacy she intended to leave for her family. Perhaps the most challenging aspect, however, was managing her own expectations. Carmen found herself comparing her new partner to her late husband, often unconsciously. She missed the unspoken understanding they had shared, the way he knew her so well, her quirks and preferences, without her having to say a word. She missed the history they had, the memories only he understood, the private jokes and shared experiences that bound them together. Her new relationship, while fulfilling in some ways, felt lacking in others, simply because it couldn't replicate the depth of connection she had shared with her husband. This realization was both painful and enlightening. She came to understand that a new relationship would never replace her past. It could only add to her life in a different way. Her journey taught her that love doesn't have to look the same at every stage in life. It can evolve, take on new forms, and fulfill different needs. But accepting this required her to let go of her own expectations, to allow the relationship to be what it was, without forcing it to mirror the past. Ultimately, after much reflection and self-discovery, Carmen decided that while she valued her relationship, she valued her independence even more. She made the decision to remain in her own home, to maintain her routines, and to keep her relationship on her terms. She recognized that her happiness didn't depend on being in a traditional partnership, but on living in a way that felt true to herself. Carmen chose a path that honored her need for companionship while respecting her autonomy. She continued to see her partner regularly, sharing moments of joy and connection, but without the pressure to integrate their lives completely. This balance gave her the freedom to nurture her relationship without sacrificing the independence she had worked so hard to establish. It allowed her to cherish her memories of her husband while embracing the new, creating a future that felt authentically hers. Carmen's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of self-awareness and boundaries in later life relationships. Through her journey, she discovered that opening one's heart again is an act of courage, but it doesn't have to come at the cost of self-respect or personal autonomy. Her experience shows us that while companionship can enrich our lives, it's essential to approach new relationships with a sense of clarity about our needs, our values, and the life we've built. Carmen learned that love in later life can be just as meaningful as love in youth, but it requires a different approach, one that respects both the past and the present, honors the memories we carry, and allows room for new connections to flourish without overshadowing the foundation of independence we've established. For anyone considering a new relationship later in life, Carmen's story offers invaluable insights. First, she reminds us that it's okay to want companionship, to crave closeness, and to seek happiness with another person. Love is not restricted by age, The heart doesn't have an expiration date. But she also teaches us that it's equally important to maintain our independence, to be mindful of family dynamics, to be clear about financial boundaries, and to manage our own expectations. Carmen's experience underscores the value of honest communication, not just with a partner, but with ourselves. Before stepping into a new relationship, it's essential to ask, what do I want from this? How does this fit into the life I've built? Am I willing to compromise, and if so, where? These questions help ensure that we enter a relationship with clarity and purpose, making choices that enhance our lives rather than complicating them. Carmen's journey through love, loss, and self-discovery is ultimately a story of resilience and self-respect. She teaches us that new love, while beautiful, is not a necessity for fulfillment. Rather, it's an addition that can bring joy and companionship when approached thoughtfully. By choosing to live on her terms, she found a way to honor her past while creating a future that aligned with her values and aspirations. Her experience encourages us to remember that we are whole and complete as we are, that our worth is not defined by partnership, and that independence can be a source of profound strength and peace. Carmen's story is a testament to the fact that life after loss can hold joy, growth, and unexpected connections, but only if we allow ourselves the freedom to live authentically, with love and respect for both ourselves and the life we've built. As we come to the end of these stories, each with its unique challenges and triumphs, there are overarching lessons that resonate deeply for anyone navigating the journey of life after loss. Each story, Doña Elena's peaceful embrace of the present, Mrs. Teresa's discovery of the importance of independence, and Mrs. Carmen's thoughtful approach to love in later life, provides a map for moving forward with strength, purpose, and resilience. These experiences remind us that while grief and loneliness are natural parts of losing a beloved partner, they are not the entirety of our story. In fact, they can be the stepping stones to a new chapter that is both meaningful and fulfilling, even if it looks different than what we once envisioned. So let's distill the lessons from these journeys into practical, actionable steps that anyone can apply as they work to rebuild a life that honors the past while embracing the future. One of the first and most essential lessons we can take from these stories is the power of routine and self-care in finding stability. When we lose someone close to us, especially a partner with whom we shared our daily life, our routines are often the first thing to crumble. The familiar rhythm of shared meals, conversations, and daily tasks is replaced by a silence that can feel overwhelming. It's easy to become untethered, to lose track of time and fall into patterns of isolation. But as Doña Elena's story shows us, establishing a new routine can be incredibly healing. It doesn't have to be complicated or ambitious. It can start with something as simple as creating a morning ritual. Set aside time each morning to do something that grounds you, whether it's enjoying a cup of coffee by the window, reading a few pages of a book, or writing down a positive intention for the day. This small act of consistency provides structure, giving each day a foundation. Over time, this foundation becomes a place of peace and strength, helping you feel more in control and less at the mercy of grief. Another valuable lesson is the importance of creating a personal sanctuary. Mrs. Teresa's story highlighted how reclaiming her space was essential to her journey toward healing. After a lifetime of sharing a home and later attempting to live with family, she found that her peace lay in having a place to call her own. a space where she could cultivate her own energy, routines, and sense of self. For those who feel lost after a loss, consider how your home environment could become a sanctuary that supports your well-being. This doesn't mean you have to make dramatic changes, but take time to create a space that feels nurturing and comforting. Rearrange a room, decorate with meaningful items that make you smile, or designate a corner of your home for quiet reflection or hobbies you love. By crafting a personal sanctuary, you're not only building a space that feels safe and warm, but you're also establishing a boundary that reinforces your independence and resilience. This sanctuary can become a retreat where you recharge, find joy, and connect with yourself in the quiet moments of each day. Connecting with community is another cornerstone for navigating life after loss. As all three stories illustrated, isolation can be one of the most painful parts of grief, but it's also one of the most challenging to break. After losing a partner, many people naturally withdraw, either out of sadness, fear of burdening others, or simply because it feels overwhelming to engage socially. However, reaching out, even in small ways, can be transformative. Start by exploring community activities that align with your interests. This could be anything from a gardening club, as Mrs. Teresa joined, to a local book club, senior exercise group, or art class. Look for environments where you can enjoy shared interests, which allows for organic connections to develop over time. These activities do more than fill your time. They give you opportunities to build new friendships, create memories, and remind yourself that you are part of a larger world that values and welcomes you. These connections can be invaluable, offering a sense of belonging and a reminder that, despite the loss, there is still joy and camaraderie to be found in life. An equally important lesson is the value of setting boundaries with family. Family relationships are often a lifeline, providing love and support during times of grief. However, as Mrs. Teresa and Mrs. Carmen's experiences showed, there are complexities in these relationships that require careful navigation. Many well-meaning family members may try to step in, offering help and advice that, while coming from a place of love, can sometimes feel overwhelming or restrictive. For those going through this journey, it's crucial to communicate your needs clearly and establish boundaries that allow you to feel both supported and independent. Remember that it's okay to need your own space and to prioritize your own well-being. Setting boundaries doesn't mean distancing yourself emotionally. Rather, it's about ensuring that your relationships are balanced and respectful of your autonomy. This might mean having open conversations about what support you appreciate and what areas you'd like to handle independently. These conversations can be difficult, but they often lead to deeper understanding and stronger, more compassionate family dynamics. One of the more nuanced aspects of moving forward is learning to embrace gratitude, even when grief is still present. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to be happy or pretending that the pain isn't real. Rather, it's about finding small moments of joy and acknowledging them. As Doña Elena's nightly gratitude practice taught her, taking a few minutes each evening to reflect on something positive can gradually shift your focus. Start by noting one thing you're grateful for each day. It could be as simple as a sunny afternoon, a warm meal, or a kind interaction. Over time, this habit of noticing small blessings can foster a sense of peace, reminding you that even amidst sadness, there are beautiful moments to be found. Gratitude doesn't erase grief, but it does create space for hope, helping you rebuild your life with a sense of appreciation for the present. For those who may be considering new relationships, Mrs. Carmen's story provides a powerful example of the need for clarity, self-awareness, and boundaries. Love in later life can be fulfilling, but it comes with unique challenges, from navigating family dynamics to managing expectations and preserving personal autonomy. Before embarking on a new relationship, take time to reflect on your goals and boundaries. Ask yourself what you hope to gain from this relationship, and consider whether it aligns with the life you've built. Ensure that you enter any new relationship with clear boundaries around finances, family involvement, and personal space. Remember that a new partner should complement your life, not redefine it. Mrs. Carmen's journey showed us that while companionship can be enriching, it's essential to prioritize your own well-being and independence. Love doesn't require compromising the self. It thrives when both individuals can bring their full, independent selves to the partnership. Ultimately, these stories converge on one central idea. Self-compassion and self-discovery are at the heart of thriving after loss. Life after losing a partner is not about moving on or getting over the past. It's about integrating the love and memories into a life that is still vibrant, full, and worth living. Each of these individuals demonstrated the courage to look inward, to prioritize their own needs, and to embrace life on their own terms. Whether it's through building new routines, nurturing personal space, engaging with community, or even exploring new relationships, the key is to remain compassionate with yourself. Accept that grief will ebb and flow, that there will be difficult days, but also recognize that you are still here, still capable of joy, growth, and connection. For anyone watching, consider these practical steps as a guide, not just for coping, but for creating a life that feels whole and satisfying. Embrace a routine that grounds you, find a sanctuary that soothes you, connect with others who uplift you, and set boundaries that protect you. Lean into gratitude, even in small ways, and if love finds you, let it complement, not consume, the life you've built. Grief may change us, but it doesn't diminish our worth or our capacity for happiness. You have the strength, wisdom, and resilience to not only survive but to thrive, to continue building a life filled with peace, purpose, and fulfillment. These steps won't erase the loss, but they will help you honor it as you move forward with a renewed sense of self, creating a life that pays tribute to the past while embracing all the possibilities that still lie ahead.